Bernal, he's on your left against Braun-Duin. He is on your right, is the world champion. We'll be underway here as both these players are 4-0 here in Indianapolis.
So Joe Bernal is a player with a lot of SCG Tour success. I know at least one invitational top 8 in Indianapolis in 2011, which I know this because he was in the top 8 with me. It's not a random fact that I have. A lot of open success. A player who now mostly works in the dealer booth. He shows up to a lot of these shows. He does not play in many of these events anymore, but week 1 is standard. Everyone wants to get in there.
Brian off to a great start here. He started with a fortified village and a 3-man inspector, planes, smuggler's copter, and let's not ignore the old artifact over there. It's a Max Linkvidi clue token for the world champion. For Bernal, it's just a hissing quagmire and a swamp. I have to imagine he's probably got access to a little grasp of darkness for the copter, but we'll see as Brian's just going to attack for 1 here.
And using your vehicles in the face of open mana and instants, that's going to be a skill all good standard players are going to have to develop here.
Sylvan Advocate will bite the dust from the grasp. You saw Brian say, I'm not going to use my copter right now. I'm not going to open that up to a removal spell. So the Advocate's the one that bit the dust.
And Brian even had the opportunity there to split the difference. He could have played the Sylvan Advocate and used that to activate the copper instead. But he puts so much value in that, so much premium, that he's not willing to risk it there, even though he had a line of play that didn't expose him to too much risk in the scheme of things.
Bernal does have a 3rd land to play there in the Evolving Wilds. Looks like he's going to play a different one in Swamp into Liliana, the Last Hope. A little plus on the 3-man inspector for counters and pass the turn back over to Braun-Duin, which means he's got an opening here with the copter.
Though it does require another creature.
It does.
3-man inspector can't be a crew member right now.
Found one. And Sylvan Advocate going to attack Liliana, I believe, as Brian will draw and discard with the copter. Goodbye, planes. Liliana down to 1 counter. Anything else here for BBD?
Would have been a really good spot for Blossoming Defense there.
Yeah, just finish that thing off. Here's a hub. You're getting energy with the mana available to sacrifice the clue. It's been a pretty good first 4 turns for Brian.
Yep, although Bernal has kept his head above water and has a Planeswalker in play. So not going that badly, depending on the nature of his hand, but BBD with a very efficient opening 4 turns here.
For Bernal, he's got the Liliana at 1 counter, traverse the Uvenwald, and 2 copies of Ishkana in hand at this stage. Working his way towards Delirium. Again, I did mention the Evolving Wilds. The traverse the Uvenwald, that would be a land and a sorcery to go along with the instant, and then if Liliana bites the dust, that'd be a Planeswalker, and all of a sudden, hello,
We're
Delirium.
all the way up.
Yeah. Not that tough to do.
Nope. Not
that tough. Bernal looks like he's going to start with the Liliana. Going to target the Sylvan Advocate. So I get -2, -1. See what comes next here for Joe. He'll play Evolving Wilds and simply pass the turn back. Brian will sacrifice the clue, and he will draw a card. Now it's time for him to untap. And now the world champion will draw a card. Looks like Fortified Village is what he's picked up. 5 cards in hand here for BBD.
A lot of potential tricks there on Bernal's side of the table with the available mana.
Passing with just 3 mana available, you know, you're thinking of Grasp of Darkness, you think of cards like Murder, even some that you might not even be thinking off the top of your head that might be new cards from Kaladesh. And Brian's certainly taking his time on this turn before making an attack. It's going to be 3-man Inspector over to Liliana. Brian really respecting the fact that he kind of needs his copter right now, or at least valuing his copter very high.
Well, these green-black decks and these Delirium decks play a lot on their own turn. So if you can jam up your opponent's mana and still have proactive turns and develop your board, you can really leave them pretty jammed up.
I would say this counts as a proactive turn. A Murder here from Joe. He will sacrifice the Evolving Wilds as well. Murder taking care of the Sylvan Advocate. So again, Brian appears to be 2 for 2.
Right, I was about to say the exact same thing. 2 for 2 about not activating the Smuggler's Copter in the face of open mana and Bernal having a removal spell both times.
Let's go Joe's way. Instant and land of the graveyard. No Delirium just yet, as Bernal will draw a card.
Attention Modern Challenge players. The 3 p.m. Modern Challenge. Your pairings for round 1 are being posted on green paper right next to the coverage booth.
Now Bernal's list, as we mentioned before, very definitive. 4 copies of Murder, no copies of Ruinous Path. Makes his deck solid against Smuggler's Copter. Unfortunately, not great against Gideon.
And that's the trade-off you have to make as a player who's playing black.
Yep.
You know, do you want to play Murder and have that instant speed access to maybe be able to kill a card like Smuggler's Copter or Creature Lands? Or do you want to have maybe the raw power of a card like Ruinous Path, good early and good late, but doesn't take care of Copter, and now if you're not playing it, you have a real difficulty against Gideon. We'll head Brian's way right now. He'll untap those 5 lands. His Gideon with 4 counters on it. 2/2 Night Ally, 1/2 Thraben Inspector, and then the Smuggler's Copter. Now Liliana did go up, so I imagine it's slowing down that Night Ally a little bit.
Well, Bernal here vulnerable to quite a few cards. Anything that can remove the Ishkana. Declaration of Stone has to be on his radar right now, but 0 copies in BBD's list this weekend. In the main, at least. Some in the board.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of Declarations in Stone in the main deck here this weekend.
I think it's a tough time for sorcery speed removal.
I think it's a good time for a Ritter's Gearhulk. How about you?
Looks fine here. Looks fine.
Brian activated the Copter beforehand, so now the Gearhulk is going to spread out some counters. He'll put 2 on the Copter, 1 on the Night Ally, 1 on the Gearhulk. And now Gideon is going to go up as well. Beatdowns, I think. Yep. Ritter's Gearhulk is no joke, folks. Copter activation, draw and discard here for Brian. There goes Canopy Vista. And Joe's got some difficult blocks to make.
Yeah, not really. I mean,
Just let Liliana go.
The only question is if he wants to chump block with the Ishkana to hit Delirium. That's about it.
Yeah. Joe looks like he'll play a Traverse here in just a moment. Maybe.
The Traverse is card type number 4.
It is. I think the big issue here for Joe is, previously, Ishkana would do a nice job of maybe stopping Green-White's biggest threat, which would sometimes be Archangel Avacyn, something of that nature. The Gearhulk changes the game.
It's not even just that the Gearhulk itself is going to be larger than that, but a lot of these 3/3/4/4s that you have on the battlefield that Ishkana usually checks, now suddenly Ishkana is just nowhere near big enough.
Traverse did resolve, so Joe searched up a little something, something. Aha. Ishkana into the red zone, going after Gideon. Yeah, and completely respected.
Right.
If you're blocking, I'm conceding that's exactly what Joe's doing. Braun-Duin going to win game number 1 here over Joe Bernal. Green-White aggro very quickly up a game over Joe's black-green Delirium deck.
Yeah, and BBD there did a very good job bobbing and weaving with the Smuggler's Copter for sure. Never got tagged by a removal spell there. BBD didn't get too greedy. Still got his shots in. Got to deal a lot of damage. Smooth out his hand a little bit. Very easy wire-to-wire win there that game.
We're going to the sideboards now. Let's see where we're going to start. We're going to start with Joe Bernal. Pretty straightforward sideboard for him. 4 Lost Legacy, 4 Natural State, 3 Transgress the Mind, 2 Clip Wings, and then 2 Ruinous Path.
3 copies of Transgress the Mind and 2 copies of Ruinous Path. Just a little bit more removal. You saw his main deck is definitely vulnerable against Gideon. That was a big problem. Both of those cards are answers to Gideon and also answer other things.
For Brian, he's got 3 Natural State of his own, 3 Declaration in Stone, 2 Linvala the Preserver, 2 Nissa Vital Force, 2 Fumigate, and a Singleton Tireless Tracker.
Same deal we saw before here when we saw this deck. I think the Declaration of Stones, Linvala's Nissa's and Tireless Tracker, and some mixture is nice for a protracted game played mostly on the battlefield.
Well, those are the options there for both players. Joe Bernal will be on the play here for game number 2, so we'll be watching him start in just a moment. But let's talk about the YouTube page, Patrick, where you can become one of over 100,000 subscribers to watch some of the very best content today.
Yeah, you can subscribe today over at youtube.com/StarCityGames. A lot of content up on the page. Versus Series videos, Commander versus videos, Magic Online playtesting, best of SCG Lives, archives, and much more. Again, subscribe today over at youtube.com/StarCityGames for free and get notified when new content is uploaded to the page.
We also have a pretty awesome show over there on YouTube now. It's called Split Second.
Yes.
Where we do a daily review. I don't know if you saw the episode we had you in one.
I have not seen it.
Involved pile shuffling when we went over the new rule change for that.
Yes.
And we had a very nice photo of you being very unhappy.
Yes.
Yes. Now, as we take a look at Brian's player slide here, let players learn a little bit more about the world champion, 30 years old, who currently resides in Roanoke, Virginia, with 14 open top 8s, 1 open win, 4 invitational top 8s, no wins there just yet. He's your world champion. He learned to play Magic in college, got a late start to his Magic career. Obviously a fantastic, fantastic Magic player, and we've got to watch his game grow quite a bit over the past 2 years.
It's been one of my favorite things about being able to cover this tournament series over the last 4 or 5 years. The growth and evolution of a lot of our players, and BBD near the top, possibly at the top of the list. A player who went from solid Open Series competitor to consistent invitational performer to Grand Prix top 8 competitor to Grand Prix champion, and now world champion.
It's been a fun run. That is for sure. 2-time Grand Prix champion. And about to play game number 2 here.
Using your one lifeline.
No, this is a good time to go over this. Joe getting a good pile in. Now, Patrick, I just want to open the floor for the pile shuffling and the change that you have caused to the game.
I don't want to say that I've caused it. I'm sure, drove the conversation a little bit, which is one of the nice things about having a microphone and a variety of grievances that you would like to air out in public. You're now allowed, I believe, to pile shuffle once to confirm your deck size before you present. But other than that, you gotta just riffle shuffle.
That's right. And I will make sure the next time I'm in the feature match area and you are watching Eyes in the Sky,
you get one,
that I get a couple in. I'll bribe the judge to make
and
sure I get the
everyone's
next one
response to this was, "Oh, now I can pile shuffle after each fetch land activation," because I guess the exact wording of the document. No, you can't. Yeah. No, the judge is not going to let you do that. Your opponent isn't going to let you do that. The local store you play at isn't going to let you do that. Your friend at the kitchen table isn't going to let. No one's going to let you do that.
No, it's just not okay. It's bad behavior right there. No one's going to allow that.
Also, people just have a limited capacity to waste their own time, even when they're protesting things. And of all the things to protest that you could waste your time on, the change to the pile shuffle rule should probably be really low on the list. Look how quickly these players presented. Look how quickly. We didn't have the second, the third, the fourth unnecessary pile shuffle.
Now
we can
get back to more Magic.
Yeah.
Oh,
hey,
darn.
have you noticed how the rounds have turnover as it felt like maybe 2 or 3 minutes earlier than they usually do?
It does feel that way.
It's almost like you get the time back if people stop wasting it. It doesn't disappear. You get to allocate it to other things.
Both players will keep 7. A hissing quagmire here for Joe. For Brian, it's a fortified village, reveal forest, play a 3-man inspector, make a clue, and we go back to Joe Bernal.
You can go ahead and move up our St. Elmo's reservation tonight from 8 to 7:45.
I'm feeling pretty good about 7:30.
We're getting that time back.
The shrimp cocktail already on the way. A blooming marsh and a Sylvan Advocate here for Joe. No good attacks for Brian, so he'll just pass the turn after playing a land. Joe will come across here for 2. Play another blooming marsh. Does he have a follow-up? Yes, it is Liliana the Last Hope. I think we will see the Planeswalker Plus. We will on the 3-man inspector, and we will go back to Brian, who will sacrifice a clue on Joe's end step. He'll draw a card. He'll untap those 2 lands, and he'll draw for his turn. And let's see what the 3rd turn brings for him. Fortified village, reveal a forest. Just pass, huh? See if Joe's buying what Brian is selling here. In comes the Advocate.
Test the waters. First order of business.
Good test.
Don't know what's going on over there. This is a safe place to start.
Mind Rack Demon. Trigger. Scroungers 1. Swamp is 2, Mindwreck Demon is 3, Natural State is 4. That's
Oh, is Artifact Creature relevant here? Yes, it is. It's almost like these rounds are being shot, or we're commentating on them post-edit. Like I bring up this stuff, and then it just happens. Bring up Mindwreck Demon, Joe Bernal's got 4. Bring up Artifact Creatures with Delirium, it matters.
This is post-produced Magic content.
Yeah.
That's what this is. Joe has plus his Liliana as well. Now it's Brian's turn. He's got a Forest. He has a Gideon. That Flyer's going to do a nice job of checking that.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
And you can see the immediate shrug there from Joe. Knows it's not a big deal here.
Not going to take any damage from the Mindwreck Demon. And now we head over to Joe for his, I believe, 6th turn of the game. I take it back, his 5th turn of the game. I do agree with you. It does appear as though Mindwreck Demon is poised for an uptick.
Especially if Gideon's a popular card.
Yeah.
Very well positioned to fight Gideon.
Does an awesome job of checking that thing. Also 5 toughness. Take that, Chandra.
Mm-hmm.
Guy like that. Liliana is a plusin, and now here come the beatdowns. Everybody. Looks like Mindwreck Demon going to go to Gideon. That one's pretty clear. Sylvan Advocate going to go to Brian. No real good blocks for Brian to make this turn. So this has been so far 5 very successful turns for Joe Bernal.
And a lot of times when you talk about is your deck good against Gideon or not, it's not just how many cards do you play in your deck that say destroy target planeswalker. A lot of it is how reliably do you get out in front of the game in the first 4 turns. Joe has done a very good job this game and failed to do so in the first game in pretty spectacular fashion. This game he looks firmly ahead. Previous game he got run out.
Scrap Heap Scrounger, Evolving Wilds, pass the turn back with 2 mana available to potentially get back another Scrap Heap Scrounger, if Joe would like, given that there is a creature in the graveyard to remove in Mindwreck Demon.
And BBD's curve has been so awkward and ineffective this game that Bernal does have to be worried about some sort of sweeper or some random haymaker showing up here, because so far BBD's draw has been so bad that it almost feels like some sort of trap has to be set here.
Yeah, is there some sort of Fumigate coming, or, you know, Verdurous Gearhulk? That's pretty good. See if that can play catch up for Brian a little bit here, as he's going to distribute some +1/+1 counters around. Joe says, while you figure that out, I'm going to sacrifice my Evolving Wild, save us some time, then hopefully give us a good pile shuffle. No, doesn't look like it.
Oh, well, I could just pile after Evolving Wilds. No, you can't. Stop saying that. No, you can't.
Looks like Brian might be serving in here with the Inspector. Joe right now with a land and a Ruinous Path in hand. One card I do want to take a look at while some decisions are being made, a Natural State. A card that both players have 3 copies of in their sideboard, perhaps prime for an uptick here.
Oh, definitely. I mean, all the efficient shatters and disenchants had to be going up in value. The set, of course, very heavy with artifacts, and probably more enchantments will be showing up in standard in general because of the rotation of Tremoka's command. So Natural State, I think we're going to see a lot of in the coming months.
Liliana's going to fall down to 3 after the Inspector does come across there, and that looks like it will be Brian's turn. Curious to see if Joe's going to return the Scrounger. We'll take a look at Scrap Heap Scrounger, too.
I mean, Joe's doing a little bit of math here. His leftovers here are land number 6 and Ruinous Path. So he can get back the Scrounger, untap, play a 6th land, remove the Verdurous Gearhulk via the Ruinous Path.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have a 3/3 against a 4/5 and a bunch of 3/2s that come back, plus a 4/5 flyer.
Looks like Joe's going to say, all right, Mindwreck Demon, you hit me pretty hard in the face, but I'm okay with that because I will draw.
Additionally, Bernal can then use the plus on Liliana to just shrink down the night token that's left over, and they can't even trade with the Scroungers at that point.
Lots of light here for Joe's turn. Joe's draw was an Evolving Wilds. This is Ruinous Path. Bye-bye Gearhulk. Joe is going to plus the Liliana. And it's going to be on something here. You see he's doing some math. 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Well, he may not have anything left over to do with his mana, instead get back the Scrounger anyway, so he may allow BBD to trade this turn, token for Scrounger, and then use the Liliana plus on the 3-man Inspector or for something else.
Sure, sure. This is interesting. He didn't play a land.
Okay.
Huh. and he didn't activate Liliana either. So this says to me that he wants to make this trade.
I have to imagine that this is a misclick here.
That would be a double misclick because there's no
Right.
activation of Liliana and no playing of land 6.
I mean, I guess what this allows him to do is get a creature in the graveyard in case BBD has some sort of sweeper. He can get back the Scrounger straight away, and he's attacking for. He gets 10 across this turn. So between getting back the Scrap Heap Scrounger and his Hissing Quagmire can attack for lethal even through his sweeper.
Okay.
That's the rationalization here. It's a very unorthodox line of play. I don't know if it's worth it on the balance, but this is where we're at.
If the sweeper's Fumigate,
Then it's a lot more complicated because
Yeah.
BBD is going up to 8. But keep in mind that Bernal gets to keep the Liliana in this sequence also.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, let's say Bernal goes, okay, land number 6, I'll plus the Liliana on your token and attack with everything. BBD can say, okay, take it, untap. I guess he can't take it all, right?
Because that would have been lethal.
That would have been lethal.
Yep.
But let's say if he could survive that attack, then BBD could go untap, finish off your Liliana, Fumigate. Now where are we at?
Sure.
Now you might actually be in some trouble.
Let's see what this is. Quarantine Field. Flyer and Scrap Heap Scrounger are going to bite the dust. Remember, the Thraben Spectre is a 3-power creature right now because Liliana finished off the Knight Ally, and now Joe's going to sacrifice a land. You want to talk about a card that might be prime for an uptick? We've talked about enchantments a lot this weekend. We saw Ryan Overturf destroy Christopher Juliano with Fevered Visions. I think this might be one as well. Quarantine Field, pretty powerful card if it goes unanswered.
I think Bernal may have drawn Grasp of Darkness this turn, which should finish off this game in a moment.
There is the Grasp. Here's an activation of the Quagmire, an attack for 5, and that's going to do it. So Joe Bernal is going to win game number 2 here over Ryan Braun-Duin. Black-Green Delirium, Green-White Aggro. They're going to get ready here for game number 3. It does make you wonder if that was a mistake by Joe because he thought about plussing Liliana, he thought about playing a land. He definitely decided not to do either. And was basically announced without announcing it that I'm totally fine with making this trade.
Yeah, the only rationale I can think of is wanting to be able to do something with the Scrap Heap Scrounger right away in the event that BBD had some sort of sweeper. It's tough just because, most of the sweepers are 5 and BBD could have done that the previous turn instead of casting the Virtuous Gear Hulk and so on and so forth. So I'm not sure the story lines up, but very odd for Bernal to not play the 6th land there, but I've watched him play long enough and well enough that I assume it would be strange if that was just a random misclick and not part of some plan to force the trade there.
Yeah, again, and the thing, so I agree with you. I think what kind of actually leads me to believe that this is a decision that he made was it involves a double misclick, but not
Right.
playing a land or activating Liliana. And I just don't think that's the case. I think that Joe thought that turn through. He probably has a reason for why he wanted to make that play, and we can ask him after the round.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly what the line of thought was, because there was clearly something. He didn't just go into his turn and say attack with everyone and go, oh.
Right, I had to imagine it was protecting himself from a sweeper there.
Sideboards one more time here we can take a look at really quickly. Get an idea of what's going on here in the sideboards. We saw Natural State from Joe. He's got some number of those in his deck. Natural State and Brian sideboard. Do you like anything here? Any changes?
No, I like the stuff that's good in mid-range battles for fighting. In mid-range creature matchups, most of the game is on the battlefield. The Planeswalkers, things like Tireless Tracker, the Declaration in Stones, the Ruinous Paths, I think they all slot in very naturally this sort of game.
Well, these players are going to shuffle up here for game number 3. Now, I know a lot of people are watching this weekend. It is Kaladesh release weekend, so we want to thank everyone who is watching and chatting over there in our free chat now here on SCG Live. Lots of awesome, sweet decks that we've seen so far through 5 rounds, and some of them you can play at the Regional Championships 2 weeks from now, and you can learn more about where you can go play regionals right now.
Don't miss the StarCityGames.com Season 3 Regional Championships. On October 15th, play Standard at any of the 15 regionals across the U.S. The first 200 players to register for each event will receive a Wings of Glass playmat and token just for signing up. Regional Championships are now part of the SCG Tour with SCG points for all players. Top 8 competitors earn a trophy, a share of $5,000, and a spot in an upcoming SCG Invitational. Visit go.starcitygames.com/regionals to learn more.
Plant your flag October 15th. Find your closest regionals. Get an awesome playmat and token. And have some fun
Yeah,
over Pro Tour Kaladesh weekend.
a lot of cash, a lot of SCG points.
Gonna be a good week.
Invites to the Invitational.
Yeah.
Whatever you're trying to do, qualify for the Players' Championship or get some buys or get to Atlanta or just play some sweet standard games and win some money.
Yeah.
Go to SCGINDY.com/regionals. All the venues are posted. 2 weeks away.
Got here fast.
It did.
Always does. Everything does now. Tell you what.
Because we are old.
I'm going on the Whirlwind Tour start next week. It
I
got
know.
Here, it got here. It got
I
here
know.
so fast.
You haven't even mentioned that. I don't think this has been mentioned in the broadcast. You got even more skin in the game and more reason to pay attention than you typically do, because you'll be competing in the Pro Tour in Honolulu in
2 weeks.
less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Friday's day one.
Yeah. Grand Prix Atlanta next week. Pro Tour after that, and then Grand Prix Providence the week after that. I don't know. I think I'm 20 again.
Yep.
I think that's what's going on here. I just need to feel young.
Yep.
Need to feel young. It's definitely the third tournament that's going to get me, by the way.
Oh, Providence.
Like Atlanta, like I'm totally pumped for. It's not that far from Roanoke. Like it's like a 6-hour drive. It's like a 1-hour flight. I might
Sealed
just
with
take-
the new format.
Yeah, sealed with the new format.
Great stuff.
I enjoyed playing at the pre-release too. Like the limited format looks awesome. Totally pumped for that. Pro Tour, obviously, it's my first Pro Tour in
a while, right?
5 years, I think.
Yeah.
Pro Tour Kaladesh, Pro Tour Return to Ravnica in Seattle is my last one. So like 5 years. And then the Providence GP post-Pro Tour. That's when I'm going to be burned down.
Look how quickly we went from sideboarding to game number 3.
That's nice.
That was really fast. I don't know why it feels faster than it used to, but it feels a little bit faster.
They're already playing.
Yeah, we're already in.
Wow, that's nice. There's a 3-minute inspector with a clue. Joe has a hissing quagmire. That's just nice to be able to get to watch more Magic.
Yep.
Just right away. Uh-oh, the copter's here. We might be getting out of Joe's dreams and into Brian's car. Okay, well, we're definitely getting in the car now.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, this cuts both ways. If BBD is down both of his blockers there, even if he has a creature to play on the follow-up, all Bernal needs is one removal spell. Grim Flare connects, and we know with these Delirium decks, one hit from a Grim Flare is a huge deal.
Oh, yeah. Brian got a draw and discard here from the copter. We'll see what he wants to discard here in just a moment. You see the mana base? I think it's a little telling right now. Just white. Not sure if he has access to green mana or not. I'm sure we'll find out momentarily.
There has not been a spot in his curve so far for Canopy Vista, and if he's opened up on 2 basics, he could have that as land number 3.
Mm-hmm.
But he could also be missing colors of mana and leaning on the clue and the copter to find it.
Well, if he's discarding Canopy Vista, I am led to believe he has a green mana.
Yeah, saying go would be weird here. I agree.
Here is Canopy Vista. Yeah, your turn. Go ahead, no land. He will sacrifice a clue.
And Joe's got to be thrilled about that.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen Grimflayer connect in any of the tournaments I've covered so far since it's been legal. And it was legal for the Invitational, right?
Yeah.
Like that was 2 days of Standard and Modern.
Yeah.
Still never saw it. Saw a little bit of it happen at the World Champs. That's how you know they're the best. They actually got to hit with their Grimflayers.
only the best 24 can do that. Yeah. Not normal people.
That's how you qualify for the World Championships. Is just you had to send in video evidence of connecting with a Grimflayer and constructed.
Some people can tell when it's doctored.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like getting on Jeopardy.
Well, Joe is taking a look at a couple of cards here because when Grimflayer deals combat damage to a player, as rare as it is, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put any number of them into your graveyard, and the rest back on top of your library in any order, and then when you have Delirium, it becomes a 4/4.
It's taking a while for Joe to resolve this because this might be the first time it's ever happened.
Ishkana looks like it's going to the bin. What else we want to do, Joe? This is the ultimate Delirium Enabler. No, pass turn back. Looks like Clip Wings, I believe,
Yes.
and then another Grimflayer. So 2 of 4 here for Bernal. Over to BBD. Now, remember game 1. When Joe had mana up, BBD said no copter.
Mm-hmm.
And he was right.
And he's also got an incentive to no copter here, kind of in a general sense, because he has to be concerned about the Grimflayer hitting again. And if he's down the copter and the crew member, then all Bernal needs is a little bit of removal to push through with a Grimflayer another time. Probably gets to Delirium at that point, gets to definitely fix his draw quite a bit.
Let's see what we have here. Tireless Tracker. Land and Canopy Vista. There's a clue. I'll be curious to see just how good Tracker gets in this new metagame. Brian, do you want to get in the chopper? Nope.
Yep. Mana up. He needs to block also. Just too risky. Too many things can go wrong here.
There's a lot to like about the chopper. I think it's a fantastic card, but one of the things I really like about it is there's a lot of play to it.
Oh, definitely. Vehicles in general.
Yeah. And Joe has a murder in his hand I think he's about to cast. Yeah, going to take care of the tracker.
Yep.
So it looks like Brian is now 3 for 3.
And listen, you got to choose for something to be the best. If it's something that promotes good gameplay, that's nice. And if it's also something that it's easy to answer over the long term because it's an artifact and vulnerable to all sorts of stuff, that's nice too. Got to pick something. Card might be an A+, push as much as standard legal cards typically get pushed, especially for a colorless card. But if it promotes the right things, maybe that's okay.
Joe plays Evolving Wilds as land number 4, which means you've got a creature, you've got an instant. It's got a land. So it looks like he's just missing one.
And BBD put that Tireless Tracker in the graveyard without even hesitating. And this would be a great moment for Blossoming Defense. We might be getting roped in right here.
Hooking him in?
It could be nothing, but if it's the defense.
Oh boy. Can I block?
Oh my.
Okay.
Oh,
no blossoming
okay.
defense. He passed the test. Passes the test.
Because his body language was, I don't know if he's got nothing or if he's roping him in. Because if he has it there, he fizzles the removal spell he's anticipating and swallows up the Grim Flare and loots, and it's Bernal's turn.
Yeah. Would have been a great spot for blossoming defense.
Oh well.
Instead, Joe is kind of pulling ahead here a little bit. Some small incremental advantages. As Grim Flayer will put Hissing Quagmire into the graveyard. Joe's going to leave 2 cards on top, deal a little bit of damage. Now we're going to head back Brian's way.
Interesting little wrinkle to Bernal's deck. Because his deck is so instant focused, especially with the removal, his deck is not quite as good at achieving Delirium as a lot of the other builds that we've seen that have some number of Ruinous Path type of cards woven in.
Sure. Westvale Abbey. Is it Gideon time, perhaps? Yes. A Night Ally here for Brian. 4 counters. And that's it here. We go back to Joe B.
I believe Joe is at 3 card types in the graveyard currently.
Yes, he is. Played a swamp real fast. What is this, Ruinous Path? Let's make it 4. That's a sorcery.
Now we're all the way up.
Yeah, here comes the Flayer.
Someone call the people over at the Guinness Book of World Records. I think that's 3.
The third hit.
I think that's 3.
Yeah. And this one's for 4. And now Scrap You Scrounger. Where impossible is possible.
I know.
Brian will draw. He's got a 2/2 Night Ally, a 1/2 Raven Inspector, 5 lands. One of them is a Westvale Abbey. He'll start by sacrificing a clue. The World Champion will draw a card. There's another Inspector, which brings a clue along with it, and now a Copter.
Nice turn.
Not bad. Rebuilding.
Especially with a deck as much spell removal as Bernal. Nice to get a lot of little stuff on the table rather than spend your turn doing one big thing. Also worth noting, BBD with a Westvale Abbey in play. He's getting close to the amount of mana and creatures required to get that going.
Could be Ormondal time soon. Brian wants to take a look at the graveyard, see what's going on here for Joe. And Joe will draw. Where do we go now? I think Joe's done a really nice job over the first handful of turns of this game. I'd say his turns have been a little bit better than Brian's, but Brian's doing a pretty decent job of playing catch-up. Now, Joe does have a natural state in hand. He also has a Liliana, too. I think he might be going towards Liliana now. Doing a little bit of math here, trying to figure out how combat will go. All right.
Yeah, he would really like to keep pushing with this Grim Flare as much as he possibly can, both for the purposes of damage racing and also just to keep smoothing out his draws. BBD's feels like he's pretty close to stabilizing with what he's getting on the battlefield, and it's very important for Bernal to just keep drawing gas.
So Liliana's going to go after the Inspector. Brian says, in response, I will use the Inspector to crew my Smuggler's Copter, and Natural State says that is dead, thank you.
And now the Grim Flare is a 4-4 against 3-4 worth of bodies on BBD's side, so gets another connect here unless BBD is willing to double chump block for no gain.
Yep.
So Bernal with a really solid turn here. Got BBD shields down just low enough where the Grim Flare is safe to attack another time.
Night Ally looks like it's going to jump in front of the Scrounger. 4 damage will be dealt. Joe will now scry's the wrong word. It's close. He'll take a little look.
Is there a card that lets you index 3 cards? Has to be.
But also puts him in the graveyard, too?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Whatever. Gets the Grim Flare.
There is one.
What?
Grim Flare.
Grim Flare.
Yeah.
4 now. 4 hits.
Just on principle alone, Joe wins this match 2-1.
Right. This should be the next Wizards documentary. First one, Walking the Plains, very successful, or Enter the Battlefield, rather, from the Walking the Plains crew. Second, just a tape of Joe connecting with Grim Flare.
And just
turn after turn.
Interviewing him, like, in his home
Yeah.
in Chicago. How did you do it?
Right.
How did it all line up so perfectly? We're going to go back Brian's way now. Just a 3-man Inspector and a 2 3-man Inspectors and a Clue, excuse me.
It's like the Klay Thompson 37-point quarter. You know, after I hit the first couple, I felt like anything's possible. Just keep shooting.
Just keep shooting.
See where this takes me. You know, and BBD's obviously rattled. This has never happened before.
Here's a Gearhawk. Brian plays a lot of Magic Online. He's probably still never. I've never seen this.
Yeah, the BBD is the Sacramento Kings in the analogy here.
Yes.
Just, you know, we just got to wait it out.
Liliana down. Well, he's trying to turn it around.
I mean, if this Virtuous Gear Hulk sticks, he's good. He's better than good.
Yeah. Ishkana the draw. Which is, it's good, but now Gearhawk is blocking the road for the Grim Flare.
Yes. What?
Well, spiders are nice, don't get it wrong. But this is getting harder.
Mm-hmm. And BBD, now if the game slows down, he can just pivot towards Westvale Abbey.
Yep. And Joe's deck does not have a great answer to that card. Black-green decks are very, very poor against Ishkana.
You can see Bernal having some clip wings in the sideboard, gives him an answer to Smuggler's Copter, maybe allows him to answer Ormondal as well. A card I was a little surprised came in, but given his vulnerability to both cards, maybe it does just enough.
Quarantine Field for 2. Oh boy. So see, this is I think the appeal of green-white.
Yeah.
You're not the fastest deck out of the gate, but you can play long.
Oh yeah.
You've got cards that are powerful enough to play long, but you also have cards that are powerful enough with the right draw where you can end the game quickly.
Yeah, BBD won game 1, just going 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically ran Joe right out.
It reminds you a little bit of the green-white token deck of the previous format. You know, Nissa in a Gideon and Archangel Avacyn. You throw Hangerback Walker and Evolutionary Leap in there. You could go long or you could go short. And Brian's deck is kind of demonstrating that again. And this is the second time that we've seen Quarantine Field actually be pretty good in this match. In a game where Joe was connected with Grim Flare 4 times, now he's got a battlefield with 3 spiders and not much else to show for it. I don't want to discount the Hissing Quagmire that's in his lands, but does not have a lot going on right now. Might be time to maybe pivot towards that Mind Rack Demon he's got in his hand.
Yeah. I mean, it is some hope, right? I mean, if he can somehow chump block and stay alive long enough, it's 2 hits with BBD at 8.
There ain't no chump block in that Gear Hulk.
We need to pick up a removal spell. Or just, he's at 11. He's got a little bit of a cushion here.
That's where a card like Quagmire might come into play.
But the Quagmire at this point is essentially his whole turn.
What is this?
I mean, this feels likely to me like a Grasp of Darkness attack.
Okay. Well, you know Brian's blocking. Okay. Two damage comes across. Joe will pass. Mind Rack Demon in hand. Brian will draw. Brian's got 3 cards in hand. I think at least 2 of them are spells. Huh. Brian gonna take a look at the graveyard again. You know, Joe could be trying to represent something like Murder here, some other instant speed spell, all that jazz. On Brian's side, he's got a 5/5 Gear Hulk, 1/2/3 Inspector, Clue Token, Quarantine Field on 2.
Well, Murderer, I think we're going to clarify real quick, because I can't imagine BBD, if it is in Bernal's hand, it doesn't matter what he does, and if it's not in his hand, I think he definitely wants to be hitting for 5 here.
The other thing, too, that Brian needs to be a little bit concerned about is Natural State on the Quarantine Field.
Sure.
That's a real concern. Brian will get a second clue. Now, I'm not convinced there's a lot that Brian can do about that, but it is a cause for concern. Yeah, the way he's tapping for cheese, that card is good.
That is a lot of that.
Yeah. Second Gear Hulk here for BBD. He loves himself some green magic cards. I think of, used to play Junk Reanimator, standard a couple of years ago. Obviously, won Worlds with Bant Humans. And now this feels a little Bant Human-y. It's the kind of style that he really excels in.
Open players, this is time of the round. Finish active turn and play 5 additional turns.
See if he wants to get aggressive here at all. He does not. Scrap Heap Scrounger is going to come back.
Rich Hoxie, if you're in the room, please come up to customer service for missing item.
Remove a Mind Rack
Rich
Demon.
Hoxie to customer service, please. Also,
all right. Time for Joe to untap.
If you're in the room, please come to see us at customer
Time for
service
Joe to draw.
James Stevens.
Liliana the draw. Don't think that one's too good. Might be better than I'm giving it credit for, though.
Well, you know, there is the line of Bernal playing at this turn, plussing, getting back his kind of the following turn. But I think that's worse than doing this. You know, the game feels relatively stable. You know, Bernal's got at least a couple turns of blocking left in him, and he's 2 turns away.
He'll pass. Brian with 4 creatures on the battlefield. Westfield Abbey becoming a real option here. Don't forget that Brian also has those 2 clues in the battlefield, too. So if he's looking to get a little deeper into the deck, he absolutely can.
And BBD cannot really attack for lethal this turn. He's got 10 points of trample in play. Without help.
Yep.
With the right card, maybe he can. But
oh, boy. Second Quarantine Field. Scrounger, Mind Rack Demon. Pretty darn good.
The incentive was so high for Bernal to use the natural state if he had one last turn that I think BBD's probably going to attack here.
Yeah, I don't think he's buying what Joe is trying to sell. Now Joe's kind of in a rock and a hard place.
And even if he was able to break open the quarantine field, it wouldn't be the end of the world given what he's attacking with and its size. No, clearly the Ishkana coming back is not the best news in the world, but if Bernal wanted to get the Gearhulks off the battlefield, he would have to commit the Grinflayers and the Ishkanas to blocks, and at that point, you're kind of back at parity, except you still have the Westvale Abbeys and the Clues you haven't touched yet, so I like this attack.
There are some blocks. Don't forget about the trample damage, of course. So life totals will change a little bit. Joe will draw one at a time. Go take a look at the graveyard here really quick. Life total update. See Joe at 6. The trample damage from the Gearhulks. Looks like it's Liliana that he found. And he's trying to figure out if there's a way he can survive this turn, maybe get to the next turn. Yeah, and there is not. Braun-Duin going to win this match here over Joe Bernal. 2-1. Green-white aggro will take care of black-green Delirium. And for the world champion, he is 5-0 here with his green-white aggro deck.
Yeah, very impressive to get to see both ends of the range there, with BBD winning with just basically a curve-out beat-down draw in the first game, and then in game number 3, being able to play a long game, more powerful top end, even with Bernal achieving Delirium and then connecting multiple times with the Grimflayer.